Alright, let's kick things off the way the internet intended. With a meme, picture this! You've got that classic distracted boyfriend meme. The boyfriend is labeled US Navy, the angry girlfriend is labeled Proven Warship Designs. And the woman walking by, the one turning heads, that's the literal combat ship, looking all sleek and futuristic. The joke, of course, is that the Navy got distracted by something shiny and new, and let's just say the relationship with Proven Warship Designs has been a little rocky ever since. It's the perfect setup for a story that is part high-tech ambition, part national security drama, and part slapstick comedy on the high seas. You almost expect to hear a slide whistle sound every time one of these ships leaves port. This whole saga isn't just about a few funny pictures online. It's a reflection of a real-life situation that has military analysts, sailors, and taxpayers all scratching their heads. It's like ordering a pizza with all the best toppings. Pepperoni, extra cheese, the works. And when it arrives, the box is empty, except for a note that says, "We're still working on the dough." The literal combat ship, or LCS, was that pizza. Let's call something ship. So what does LCS actually stand for? Officially, it's Literal Combat Ship. Now, for those of us who didn't major in boat words, literal refers to the shallow waters close to shore. So this was meant to be a fast, agile street-fighting ship that could zip around coastlines, chasing pirates, clearing mines, and hunting submarines in places where giant aircraft carriers can't go. The idea was brilliant, like having a ninja instead of a big clumsy samurai for delicate missions. The Navy wanted a ship that was modular, meaning you could swap out its equipment like Lego bricks. One day it's a mine hunter, the next it's a sub-chaser. It was supposed to be the Swiss Army knife of the sea. The vision was born after the Cold War, a time when the Navy realized its next battles might not be huge ocean showdowns with the Soviet Union. Instead, they'd be messy, close-quarters fights in crowded coastal areas. They needed something quick, flexible, and relatively cheap. The LCS was pitched as the answer to everything. It was going to be built faster and for less money than traditional warships. The plan was to build two different versions, the Freedom class and the Independence class, to spur competition and innovation. It was a beautiful dream, a fleet of futuristic multi-purpose ships that could handle any modern threat thrown their way, all while saving the taxpayer a boatload of money. This is where the dream starts to get a little blurry, like when you wake up and can't quite remember the details. The LCS acronym soon started getting new, unofficial meanings from skeptical sailors and critics. Some joked it stood for Little Crappy Ship. Now let's talk about the problems, because oh boy, there are problems. The LCS program has been a festival of failures, like a tech product launch where the CEO tries to demo the new gadget, and it just bursts into flames on stage. First up, the engines. These ships were designed to be fast, hitting speeds of over 40 knots, which is basically warp speed for a boat. To do this, they were equipped with incredibly complex propulsion systems, a mix of diesel engines and gas turbines. But that complexity turned out to be their Achilles heel. The engines on the Freedom-class ships, in particular, had a nasty habit of breaking down. Not just a little check engine light, but catastrophic. We're dead in the water and need a tow truck failures. Then there's the cost. Remember how these were supposed to be the affordable, budget-friendly option? Yeah, about that. The original price tag for each ship was supposed to be around $220 million. That sounds like a lot, but in the world of warships, it's a bargain. However, the final cost ballooned to over $600 million per ship. That's like going to a dollar store and somehow walking out with a $3,000 bill. The cost to maintain and operate them is also sky high. So not only did the Navy buy a car that breaks down all the time, but it's a car that gets 2 miles to the gallon and requires a team of German engineers to change the oil. And what about the combat part of Literal Combat Ship? Well, that's been a bit of a letdown too. The whole swap out the mission modules idea, the Lego brick concept, has been a near total disaster. The modules for hunting mines, fighting submarines, and engaging surface ships were either massively delayed, wildly over budget, or just didn't work as advertised. For years, these ships sailed around with a basic cannon and some machine guns, making them less of a warship and more of a really expensive Coast Guard cutter. The result of all these issues, engine failures, budget overruns, and missing weapon systems, is a ship that struggles to do the one thing it was designed for: combat. You have a vessel that's too fragile to go head-to-head with a serious enemy, too expensive to be a disposable asset, and too unreliable to be sent on long-term missions without a support fleet trailing behind it. It's a classic case of trying to do everything and ending up doing nothing well. The LCS became a jack of all trades and a master of absolutely none, leaving the Navy with a fleet of ships that look great on Instagram, but you wouldn't want to take into a real fight. To really understand the absurdity of the LCS, you have to compare it to what people expect from a warship. Think about Russian warships. When you see a Russian ship, it looks like it was designed by someone who eats nails for breakfast and wrestles bears for fun. They are covered in missile tubes, radar dishes, and giant cannons. They look menacing, functional, and unapologetically built for one thing: to break things and survive being broken. They are the Ivan Drago of the sea. I must break you. Now look at the LCS. It's sleek, has clean lines, and a minimalist design. It looks like something Apple would design if they got into the warship business, the iShip. It's got a lot of empty space on the deck where the cool mission modules are supposed to go. So when you put an LCS next to a Russian corvette, it's a bit comical. The Russian ship is bristling with weapons, looking like it's ready for World War III. The LCS looks like it's on its way to a yacht party in Miami. One looks like it's here to fight. The other looks like it's here to be seen. You can almost hear the Russian sailors laughing from their bridge, in that classic movie accent. You call that ship ETO no kорабль. This is toy for rich American boy. This isn't just about looks, it's about philosophy. Traditional naval design prioritizes toughness and firepower. A warship is expected to be able to take a punch and keep fighting. The LCS, with its aluminum hull and light armament, was designed for speed and stealth, not for brawling. Critics argue that in a real combat scenario against a peer adversary like Russia or China, the LCS would be dangerously vulnerable. It's a welterweight boxer sent into the ring against a heavyweight. It might be faster and more agile, but one solid hit, and it's lights out. The stories of LCS failures are so frequent and so bizarre, they sound less like military reports and more like plotlines from a workplace comedy set on the ocean. Take the USS Milwaukee, for example. In 2015, just a few weeks after being commissioned, it broke down in the middle of the Atlantic and had to be towed to port. Towed, a brand new $500 million warship. That's like buying a new Ferrari and having it towed home from the dealership. Then there's the USS Coronado. In 2016, it was on its way to the Western Pacific for its first major deployment when it suffered, you guessed it, an engineering casualty. It had to turn around and limp back to Pearl Harbor on one engine. The crew had to sail at a snail's pace for days. Imagine the embarrassment. You're supposed to be projecting American power across the globe, and you can't even make it across the ocean without a breakdown. These incidents weren't just one-offs, they became a pattern. Ship after ship, from the USS Freedom to the USS Fort Worth, experienced major engineering problems that cut missions short and kept them tied up at the pier for months, sometimes years. These breakdowns became legendary, spawning a whole subculture of internet memes and inside jokes within the Navy. There are countless stories shared on forums like Reddit, where sailors and veterans mock the ship's reliability. One popular joke goes, "What's the first thing an LCS does when it leaves port? It breaks." Another one compares the LCS to a high-maintenance girlfriend. She's expensive, looks good from a distance, but is emotionally unstable and breaks down for no reason. The humor is a coping mechanism, a way for people to process the sheer frustration of seeing so much money and effort result in something so flawed. The reality for the sailors on board is no laughing matter though. Being on a ship that is known for its unreliability is incredibly stressful. Every strange noise from the engine room, every flickering light on the bridge, becomes a source of anxiety. Will this be the day we lose power in the middle of a storm? Will our main weapon system actually work if we need it? The crews of these ships are some of the most hardworking and dedicated people in the Navy, but they have been handed a deeply flawed platform. They are doing their best to make it work, but they are constantly fighting an uphill battle against the ship's own design. Alright, we've had our laughs, but let's get serious for a moment, because behind all the jokes and memes, there's a very real issue: your money. The LCS program has been an absolute black hole for taxpayer dollars. The total cost for the program, including development, construction, and the failed mission modules, is projected to be over $30 billion. Let me repeat that. $30 billion. For a fleet of ships that can't reliably sail across an ocean and are, for the most part, unarmed. That's enough money to fund NASA's entire budget for a year, or to give every person in America a check for nearly $100. This isn't just about wasted money. It's about what that money could have been used for. For the price of the LCS fleet, the Navy could have built more of its proven, powerful Arleigh Burke-class destroyers. The national security implications are significant. The entire point of the LCS was to counter threats in coastal regions. particularly from a rising power like China, which has been building up its own navy at a terrifying pace. China is churning out new warships like they're going out of style, many of them small, fast corvettes and frigates armed to the teeth. Exactly the kind of threat the LCS was meant to handle. But with the LCS program in disarray, the US Navy finds itself without the right tool for the job. Our multi-billion-dollar littoral combat ships are often stuck in port, while our adversaries are expanding their influence at sea. This whole saga raises serious questions about accountability in the Department of Defense and the military-industrial complex. How could a program with so many obvious flaws continue for so long? Who signed off on these decisions? It points to a systemic problem where futuristic concepts and contractor promises are valued more than practical, proven results. The LCS isn't just a failed ship. It's a symptom of a larger issue in military procurement, where bad ideas are allowed to fester for years, soaking up billions of dollars with little to no consequence for those responsible. And at the end of the day, it's the American taxpayer who foots the bill and the American sailor who pays the price. So, after all this mess, what's the future for the littoral combat ship? Has the Navy finally admitted it made a mistake? Well, kind of. The Navy has basically thrown in the towel on the original LCS concept. They've cancelled the swappable mission modules for anti-submarine and mine-hunting warfare, admitting they were a failure. They've also decided to retire some of the oldest LCS ships decades ahead of schedule. Think about that. They are scrapping ships that are less than 10 years old. That's like trading in your 2022 Toyota, because it's already a lemon. It's a massive public admission of defeat. The new plan is to try and salvage what's left of the fleet. The Navy is creating a new class of ship, called the Constellation-class frigate, which is based on a proven European design. This is the ship the LCS should have been from the start. Bigger, more heavily armed, and more survivable. For the existing LCS ships, the Navy is trying to give them a permanent job. Some of the Freedom-class ships will be based in the Middle East for maritime security patrols, while the Independence-class, with their larger flight decks, will be used as platforms for drones and special operations forces. They're basically trying to find something for these ships to do. This turn of events is a lesson in humility for the US Navy. For decades, it prided itself on being at the cutting edge of technology. But the LCS was a bridge too far. It showed that chasing futuristic concepts without proper testing and development can lead to disaster. The shift to a more traditional frigate design is a welcome return to basics. Prioritize reliability and firepower over unproven gimmicks. So, is there any hope for the LCS? Perhaps? In a limited, specialized role, some of the ships might still provide value. They are still fast and have a shallow draft, which could be useful for certain missions. But they will never be the revolutionary, game-changing warship they were promised to be. The LCS will forever be remembered as a punchline, a cautionary tale, and a symbol of military ambition gone wrong. It's a story with a simple moral. When it comes to building a warship, maybe it's better to build a tough, reliable pickup truck than a flashy, unreliable sports car. At least the pickup will get you where you need to go. But hey, that's just the facts.